Maybe we're already starting this off with a 6 billion hot take, but
We're
if
great.
I had one sentence that I think would sum up HHN 34, I would say a step towards perfection.
Ooh.
I've been that YouTuber complaining in the distance for a little bit about all the things I'd like to see improved, and a lot of those things were improved this year.
Hey everyone, welcome to the HHN Graveyard live show. My name is Josh. I run HHN Graveyard. This is a Halloween Horror Nights podcast that I do with my good buddy Billy SixBillium. Billy,
Hello.
how's it
And
going?
so far, so good. I'm pumped to be able to talk about HHN and dive a little bit more into some things that I'm not able to put into my own videos. So
Yes,
I'm very excited to see how this
yes,
podcast goes.
yes. Billy is without a doubt, no doubt in my mind, the best HHN creator on YouTube. Billy, give me a sentence or two. We'll talk more about what you make later on. What makes your videos so special? What do you like to do with the videos that you think other people don't?
I just like to make high energy videos that go a little bit more into the analysis versus just the I like this and I don't like this type of thing. And since I've been going to horror nights for almost half of my life now, I like to look at it through a little more of a critical eye than versus just a casual eye.
Wow, half your life. We're getting old.
Yeah, I
It's
know,
tough getting
more
old, isn't
practically.
it? Pretty much. But yeah, seriously, check out his videos. His That's the best in the business. I wouldn't do it with someone that wasn't as talented as him. So check him out. So yeah, so this is the first HHN Graveyard show. And we I wanted to spend just a minute or two talking about what this podcast is going to be. There's a long trend of people and podcasts that spend 30 or 40 minutes talking about what they're going to do, just to record two more episodes and then they go off air. I don't think we're going to do that. We've been talking about this thing for 6 months or a year at this point. But I wanted to talk about this very briefly. There are a lot of different really good HHN podcasts out there. I listen to a bunch. Billy, you're a podcast guy, right? To some
Eh,
degree.
every once in a
Every
while,
once in a
I
while.
get distracted by a lot of different things, as I'm sure
Okay.
you can tell.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I got that Northern California commute, so I need something to listen to on the car ride in.
Fair, fair.
So there are plenty of different good podcasts out there, but I think that they all kind of follow a lot of the same formula, and we want to do some things a little bit differently, that kind of play to our strengths. So both Billy and I are really well traveled. One of the things that we want to separate our show is that instead of just focusing on Orlando has one of the best, if not the best event, but
Mhm.
there's still a lot of interesting things going on in horror nights around the country and then around the world. And between the two of us, we visit every single horror nights all over the world multiple times a year. We are well traveled, and so we want to take this show to talk not just about Orlando, but also Hollywood, Vegas, Beijing, all of the above. Um, After that, one of the things that we think is going to really differentiate this is we're going to make sure that this is a much more kind of informationally dense show. There are a lot of the other podcasts out there that just they like to talk about all the stuff. It kind of can go on a little long. That's not to throw any shade at any of these podcasts. They do a really good job. But I tend to think that I don't do very well when I ramble and go off on long tangents. So I want to keep it kind of tight and ideally shorter than an hour, but still get you all the information that you might get in 2 hours of me kind of rambling. And then finally, one of the reasons why we haven't started this is that I really wanted to make a some games for this podcast. Um, I am a software engineer by trade, and so I have all these plans and these half written games to play on stream. There's a reason I call it the show instead of a podcast. It will be distributed by podcast, but I want it to be a live show with games that users can actually play. That's still coming. It'll be a little bit, probably be this off season, while we do some reviews in more of a traditional format. But yeah, that's kind of the three things that I see Billy and I's show really differentiating itself from other shows out there. Does that sound good to you, Billy? And anything you want to add, or we
That those games, that's a Josh promise. It's not a 6 billion promise where, I promise guys it's gonna come eventually, I promise we'll eventually get there. And then, this hair is 3 feet longer than it was when you watched my first video. So I promise
It's
the
true.
stuff is coming.
It's true.
We're very excited for this. I'm excited to get this, and I think this is gonna help
Mhm.
both of us getting more content out, help our creative juices flow.
I think so. I think so for sure. Yeah, yeah. We're both pretty excited about this, I think. But talking about the podcast isn't the output of this podcast episode. Our main topic here is going to be reviewing the HHN 34, which is Orlando's event this week. In future weeks, we'll worry about reviewing Hollywood and Vegas and all the other horror nights around the world. But we want to focus on Orlando this time around. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to have some very brief impressions of the event, just a sentence or two, overall thoughts. Instead of going around the map the way that other podcasts do and touching on every single house, we are going to share our rankings, and we are going to pick a couple, two or three houses a person to go really in depth, have conversations about, and then the other 4 or 5 houses that we don't want to talk about that we think are interesting, good or bad. We're just going to spend just a sentence or two giving our impressions of it. Then we'll do the same with the scare zones. We'll pick just one scare zone / street experiences. We'll pick one, go in depth, each, go in depth about them. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some longer thoughts about the event, a little bit of a conversation about the event as a whole instead of the parts. And then we'll wrap it up there. Sound good? Should we get started?
Let's get started. Let's roll.
All right, great. Okay, you go ahead and start us off. Give me a sentence or two about what you felt about HHN 34 in Orlando 2025.
Maybe we're already starting this off with a SixBillium hot take, but if
Agree.
I had one sentence that I think would sum up HHN 34, especially compared to the years that I've been in the past, I would say a step towards perfection.
Ooh.
I've been that YouTuber complaining in the distance for a little bit about all the things I'd like to see improved, and a lot of those things were improved this year.
Mhm.
Whether or not that means that made it the best event ever, we'll have to touch on a little bit later on in this
Right.
episode. But I certainly think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, step in the right direction. I like that. Um, I'm gonna go the opposite way. Someone else
Oh,
got
of
to be
course.
the good. You're the good cop. I'm the bad cop.
Yep, yep.
Um, okay, so a lot of the other podcasts are putting out their thoughts, and they've all been pretty universally positive. My one sentence review would be good, especially by comparison, but
Okay,
overrated.
okay. I can understand where you're coming from, but we'll butt heads a little bit later.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get this out first.
We'll get more in depth about it later on. Okay, cool. So now you kind of have some ideas of what we think about the event as a whole, just very briefly. Let's get into some of our house rankings. So let's start at 10. I'll go first this time around. My number 10 is going to be Fallout. I'm not going to give any thoughts about it because I'm going to go way more in depth later on. That's one of my interesting houses. Okay, Billy, you're number 10.
You'll never guess it, but it's also Fallout.
Okay.
I don't think there was necessarily a bad house this year, but I don't think Fallout did anything too revolutionary, and that's why it's at the bottom for me.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, good to hear. We can skip this sentence or two description of that. Okay. Now you go number 9.
Number 9 for me, Dolls. Let's Play Dead.
Oh man. Okay.
Again, don't think there was a bad house. Dolls was very good, but
Okay.
I think Dolls leaned a little bit too much on the victim scares and not enough on
Mm.
the intensity and the creep factor that it had going.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. Um, I'm not gonna touch that yet. My number 9 is gonna be Five Nights at Freddy's. You were gonna talk about this later on, right? So I should
Yes,
skip it. Okay, cool.
I do have many things to say about Five Nights at Freddy's. Are they good
Okay.
or are they bad? Stay
We'll have
tuned.
to find out. Okay, then I will go number 8. Number 8 for me is gonna be WWE. Do you were not talking about this one, right?
Nope.
Okay.
I can if you would like me to, but I
No,
don't
no,
have
no,
anything major planned for
no,
WWE at
no.
this point.
So I'll give my quick review of it. Lots of people have hyped this up, talk about how great it was. I thought that I'm not a wrestling fan. I thought that the first half was just kind of boring. It just felt like going through like cinder block zones. I'm sure if I was a WWE fan that really wanted to go backstage, I think it'd be awesome. But I'm not, so it just felt like walking through like a poorly like an old building at work. The second half was really cool. I really liked a lot of the characters. I didn't know much about them, but I liked them a lot. I thought that their like little like realms were really interesting and fun. And I just wish that Orlando would have done what Hollywood did and did the entire realms instead of just or instead of having the first half be the walk through the haunted backstage hallways of WWE.
The other thing Josh isn't telling you is that he didn't cry at the end of Marley and Me, and that's why he didn't like WWE. He doesn't have any emotional ties to anything.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I can agree with you on the beginning. The beginning was a hit or miss.
Sure, sure, and yeah, and if you love the IP and you love these characters and you've watched it your entire life, I can understand how it's you know 1 out of 10 amazing, but I don't have any connection, so it's just cinder blocks for me.
Yeah,
So
understandable.
cool.
Um,
Okay, number 8 for you.
Number 8 for me is Jason Universe, or
Jason
is it
Universe.
Jason Un 1 Eve 3 Verse 3, something like that. Um, Very good
I'm gonna
fun.
I'm gonna talk about this.
Yes, I was gonna say, I know
So
you have plenty
yes.
to say. I did like Jason Universe, definitely one of the better IPs I've seen, even if it is in, the lower part of my rankings just for this year. All right, number 7, what you got?
I'm gonna go with dolls as well. Yeah,
Okay.
bottom of my originals list. It felt I liked some of the characters. I like some of the ideas. I love all the gats. Gats are always fun. It felt a little flat to me. I think that really like a lot of the depth in a lot of Universal's houses, details, foreground, midground, background. I didn't think that dolls did it. I get the idea. But just didn't land for me. Plus, I never got to see Lila at the end of the night, who allegedly was there. Did you see her?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Only at the HHN bar.
Yeah, yeah, same here. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's like some of these Easter eggs that allegedly showed up in Artista at the last
Oh
night.
yeah.
Like, did they exist? I don't know. Nobody got pictures of them. Well, some of them, but
Guess
yeah,
we'll have
I
to
don't
go
know.
to closing night next year.
Yes, yes, yes. Don't tell me with a good time. Okay, cool. 7 for you.
7 for me is unfortunately Galkin Monsters of the North.
Okay.
Still very good. Some great sets, some great sight
Mhm,
lines, some really good scares, and of course we got to talk about the puppet at the end. But
mhm,
overall,
mhm.
was it enough? Is I guess the question that stays in my mind. Did it do enough, or was there just enough there to sell the concept?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but yeah, I have a hard time putting my finger on why it didn't really land for me because I mean, you and me were both pretty hyped about it, but
Right.
it
I was
just yeah, it just didn't work out.
I was hoping it would beat El Artista, but
Mm,
I mean, I guess it's a good thing it didn't because El Artista was pretty good,
yeah,
I
yeah, it'd be
guess.
tough to beat that one.
But spoiler alert.
Yeah, we'll get there in a minute, a little bit. Okay, number 6. I'm going to maybe shock some people. I'm gonna go Hatchet and Chains.
Ooh.
So I should say too that Billy and I both did the first weekend and then the second weekend
Yes.
together. And then Billy was able to go again one day later in the event in mid October, right?
Yep, it was mid-October, so
Yeah. And so you got to see a lot of these changes and these additions to these houses, which I heard that Hatchet and Chains was just kind of mediocre the first couple weekends, and then apparently it really got kicked into high gear as it went on. So
interesting.
that's what they say. Yeah, some of these podcasts that I've been listening to, at least. So maybe that's why I didn't like it. This is another one to me that I don't really know why I didn't like it as much. Um, I guess maybe I don't want Slaughter Cinema to just kind of be. I don't want like these concepts from Slaughter Cinema just being kind of forced at us. I want them to be like kind of more organic hits, and it really felt this time like they went in with like we're going to spin off all of these projects instead of what they did for the original, which was felt maybe more organic. So maybe I went in a little biased against it. I didn't like the room in the original. And
Neither did
Wild
I.
West doesn't do a ton for me as a whole. But yeah, just didn't work out for me. I don't think.
Well, I will give it to you. I think that the worst part of Hatchet and Chains were Hatchet and Chains themselves. There
That's
was that
right.
one cool scene at the beginning with Chains, uh, pulling the demon through the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
fireplace.
yeah.
But I
Yeah, great
mean,
scene.
if you took
Mhm.
out Hatchet and Chains from that entire house
It
and
wouldn't have
just
made much of
went
a
focused
difference.
on, zombie western and
Mhm.
went a little more crazy with it, would there really be that much of a difference? And
Right.
I don't think there really would be. So
I think yeah,
I liked it, but I will give you that point that
yeah.
didn't need to be Hatchet and Chains.
I think that is a great point. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, yeah. What did they really add to it? Um, Not a whole lot. You could have replaced them pretty easy. Cool. Okay, number 6 for you.
Number 6, uh, it might be a bit of a surprise for some people, but I'm gonna put Five Nights at Freddy's at my number 6. And with Five Nights at Freddy's, as much as I did like it, I do want to pose a question for the audience. What do you guys go to Halloween Horror Nights for? What is it exactly? Do you guys go because you want to go to the quote unquote scariest Halloween event that you can find? Do you go for the atmosphere? Do you go for the immersion? What is
Mhm,
it that you go for?
mhm, mhm.
Because if you were going for Five Nights at Freddy's, you probably were not going for the scares, or you were probably not anticipating this to be the
Yeah,
scariest
right.
house
Mhm.
this year, which it certainly wasn't, in my
It was
opinion.
not.
But Universal, ever since they opened the Studios Park, they've all of the attractions have been about riding the movies. Or once Horror Nights started to become IP central, um, these haunts became step into your favorite nightmares or whatever marketing tagline they used for
Sure.
it. And I've seen Universal do that semi successfully here and there over the past few years. I've been going since 2010. 2014's Halloween, 2016 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for an example, are two IPs that just chef's kiss, felt exactly like the movie. It wasn't just a
Mhm,
costume character jumping out, saying
mhm,
some lines, and then going back into their boo hole.
mhm,
Um, and if you watch my videos, you know my thoughts on IP haunts in general. The
mhm,
jury's still out on some of them, but
mhm,
Five Nights at Freddy's, I don't think there's another haunt except for maybe those two that I've mentioned, that topped the immersion that was found inside that haunt. Now, I'm not a super Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I was there when Markiplier started playing all of it in what 2013, 2014,
mhm,
back in the day, whenever it was. Watching those videos during my college days was pretty much the extent of my relationship with the property. Didn't think the movie that was that great, but the second that I stepped into that control room and saw the screens, saw the Foxy shadow, I can't think of another moment at HHN where I felt that immersed, where I
mhm,
felt, this is something that I'm not going to get at any other event in the world. As we said, yeah, the scares were not that great. The puppets certainly had some work that needed to be done on their timing and their aggression. But there was scary haunts this year. There are scary haunts that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this podcast. So it doesn't necessarily bother me that much that Five Nights at Freddy's wasn't the scariest because it made up for that in the immersion for me. Um, in fact, most of the IPs this year were very good at managing to feel so immersive in the worlds that they created and not just advertisements for what was coming up. But,
sure.
I go to HHN for the immersion. I'm not going to
Mhm,
go on too long of a segue to dunk on HHN Hollywood. But, some of the best scares I've ever had at a Halloween event are in HHN Hollywood, but they're in black hallway sections or less detailed sections. And I know I can get that at Hollywood, but I can't get
mhm,
this immersion necessarily everywhere else. Sorry if
mhm,
that was a little tangenty, but
mhm.
you know,
No, yeah. I agree with you. I think that this house certainly was immersive. The pizza smelled really good. It made me hungry
yeah,
for
there you
pizza.
go.
And the pizza and spaghetti was the best food item at the event. No doubts there.
Not the carrot
Um,
cake.
I never tried that, to be honest with you.
So good.
Um, Everyone says it was massive, but yeah, I never tried it. But yeah, and I guess the reason I had it so low was because um, the it certainly felt immersive. I don't have any relationship with this IP. I was also in college when this came out and started getting really big. Um, I wasn't really super into horror at the time, to be totally honest with you. And so, like this plus gaming, which I also wasn't and am not really particularly into, meant
Mhm.
that I never really picked it up. And so now I just know it from like like internet, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha memes, which
Yeah.
probably isn't the best way to experience this intellectual property. Um, but it was a beautiful house. It was very well done. The animatronics on that first scene. Can we talk about that first scene? That first scene was
Oh,
really
exa
good.
and even better in Hollywood too, if I say so myself. I like that they added the prize counter in the main, whatever, the main pizzeria area, the main
But they lost the two
auditorium or
animatronics, though.
dining room. Yeah, but you ta I don't know. Depends, I guess, on what you're looking for.
I suppose. Yeah, I guess Hollywood's maybe felt bigger.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that.
Yeah. But I like those animatronics. I guess yeah. You kind of alluded
That's good.
to the conversation about the aggression of these puppets, and that was my biggest problem with
Mhm.
this haunt is that these the characters the puppeteers. I went opening weekend. They were just getting used to these massive heavy puppets. I mean, I certainly could have done a better job. But they just never felt very aggressive to me. Versus Hollywood, where I went later on in the year, felt like way more aggressive. These puppets are kind of silly looking. Like, to be honest with you, they're a little
Mm.
silly looking.
Oh,
This
yeah.
giant bear. So I really wanted it to be a lot more aggressive than what it was. Um, it was a beautiful house. I wanted a little bit more scares. I guess is why I had it so low. But immersion, yeah, it certainly was like the maybe house at HHN this year the most that made me say like, yeah, I wouldn't get this anywhere but Universal. Imagine if Six Flags tried to make a Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
Ooh, it'd be a
It
good memes. But
I've seen some of those Saw I haven't seen all their walkthroughs, but I've seen some of those Saw walkthroughs, and, ugh,
yeah.
it's a little rough.
Did you see that allegedly there's a Five Nights at Freddy's house in Saudi Arabia that they
I
made?
did not.
Okay, yeah. I never
That's
watched the
interesting.
POV. Maybe we check it out after the show.
We'll have to. The one final thing I will say on
Mhm.
Five Nights is that it felt very much like the middle of a horror movie chase scene where, the main characters can't die yet,
Mhm.
so it feels like the villain's holding back for the whole cat and mouse aspect and
Mhm.
not actually trying to
Mhm.
accomplish their goal, and that's what
Mhm.
Five Nights felt like.
Mm.
We were
Mhm.
just we were
Mhm.
just passing through. They knew that we weren't any
Yeah.
harm, so they're just doing their little scare
Yeah.
tactics, showing off, and then they're going back and popping a beer or something. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's a fair point. I guess, yeah, my last thing is, I'm glad to see Universal push the boundaries with some of these effects, but it I don't know if I like pushing the boundaries with effects if it means that things aren't gonna work. So
Makes
when we
sense.
went for the first weekend and the second weekend, the Foxy wasn't working, it wasn't moving back and forth, and then the cupcake in the hallway wasn't moving. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
that
don't
was a little
know
disappointing. And they got fixed later on in the event, but
I don't
it
know if
worked
Cupcake
both.
ever did.
Oh, okay.
I saw the very tail end of Foxy when I went back. I tried
Okay.
to stall as much as I could to see the full scene, and I
Sure.
couldn't be that guy that stops the whole house, but Foxy at least worked. I never saw Cupcake work in,
Okay.
Orlando.
Okay. I saw both in Hollywood, but, yeah, I definitely didn't see either in Orlando, but cool. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We
I
what
say,
which
I
one were
believe
we
your
at?
number 6 for you?
6 for me was
What's
Hatch
your
and
number 6?
Chains.
Okay,
So,
so you're
yeah.
number 5.
Number 5 for me, I'm gonna go with Gulkin. Um,
Okay.
yeah, like I kind of alluded to earlier, I really wanted to like this. I really like the idea of kind of, this northern horror. It just didn't work for me. I loved the Wicker Man, I loved the final scene, but the rest just didn't land for whatever reason. I missed a lot of the big stilt scares. The one they
Yep.
had the big room for the stilt walker. I never saw him in our like 8 or 9 runs going through that house. Um, and I did not like the ending. The ending felt like wicked growth inside
Yeah,
of the pumpkin,
2.0.
but it was inside of the monster. So yeah, not for me. But I mean, hey, number 5 isn't too bad. So
Yeah, number 5 in any other year, that's, like, normally where the Hans start getting, like, good from.
right,
Yeah, it's normally, the sign where the quality is actually pretty
right,
good and not, "Ugh," as
right,
you
exactly.
said.
Mhm.
Well, my number 5 is Terrifier, and I know
Ooh,
that might be a little bit controversial, but,
yeah, uh-huh,
um,
uh-huh.
I enjoyed everything that Terrifier did. Maybe the more controversial take is that I thought it was maybe just a little bit too long. Maybe didn't have enough ideas to fully
Okay.
flesh out that super long um
Mhm,
whatchamacallit, super long layout, but
mhm,
I liked the variety. It wasn't just
mhm,
gore gore, in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
face splatter
yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
You had the little you had a little reprieve with your favorite scene of all of
Right.
2024 with the clown cafe,
Clown
and
Cafe.
had a nice ebb and flow to it. But
Mhm.
by the time we got to Santa art, it was like, okay, either do something really really cool or really left field, or we can wrap this up. And I would rather see the last quarter of this house's budget go to something like golf
Mm.
that
Mhm,
didn't
mhm,
feel as fleshed out.
mhm,
But
mhm.
again, I last year, 2 years ago, I said we'd never get Terrifier at HHN, and
I
Terrifier exceeded all of my expectations this year.
yeah,
And I think they hit the nail on the head with it for the most part. So I
I
really don't have that much
mhm,
negative to say.
mhm. Except about how wet you got on the wet path?
Oh yeah, drenched completely. Worse than premium night going through that path. Just
Oh,
crawling out of there. I couldn't even stand up. The weight of
all the
the
water.
water was just weighing me down.
Sure, sure, yeah, that was a little over, dramatic, but that's okay. We
I
we
mean,
had a good time.
the
Mhm.
art of dying does bring me to life.
That's a fair point, yeah, yeah, a poet, Spencer Charnas would say that, mhm. But that poor tenant that had to sit at the end of that house, I feel bad for them.
Hey, at least in Hollywood, they played the full song for the,
That's true, mhm.
ceremony or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
and not
it is the
just
GOAT
the
event after
chorus.
all, so,
Yeah.
mhm. Okay.
Oh,
Number 4 for me, Jason.
okay,
I'm
yep.
gonna talk about this a little later, so we'll go ahead and save it. What is your number 4?
My number 4 is Hatchet and
Hatchet and
Chains.
Chains, okay.
I like the way it flowed. I like that it wasn't necessarily a B C D story where you're just
Sure.
following plot point,
Mhm,
and this whole
mhm.
story is wrapped up in a neat little bow. You're just going through like 3 to 5 minutes of the action happening in this western town, and I think that pacing set it apart from a lot of the other haunts that I've been through, and I enjoyed that more than anything.
Sure, that's a fair point. That's it was an interesting story, and I know that there were, like, subplots that with the Abigail that was the woman of the night that with the one character, you know that. You
Yeah,
did that
and
in the
I need to re-listen to the podcast and do some
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
homework
yeah.
on that.
Yeah, it was in one of the notes. Like, it's cool all the detail they put in, but yeah, very interesting house. I wish it landed for me, but it just didn't. Mhm.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's
Mhm. Yeah,
okay. It happens to the
it
best.
does. It does. Mhm. Okay, number 3 for me. This will also shock a lot of people, I think. Grave of Flesh. Um,
Ooh.
Neither of us has said it yet, so that probably sets us apart from everyone else.
Probably,
Um,
I can guarantee you it does.
right.
We're getting hate comments as we speak, and we haven't even posted the podcast yet.
Do you want to talk about this later, or should we talk? Should I give my
Um,
thoughts right now?
um, we can talk about it now. It's
Okay.
not my number 3, but it's not too far after. Spoiler alert.
Okay. Um, is it one of your 3 interesting ones, though?
Yes, it is one of my 3
Okay. Okay.
interesting
Let
ones.
me skip what I'm going to say about it now, and we'll talk
Okay.
about it in a minute.
All right. You want me
Okay.
to do my number 3?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
All right. My number 3 is WWE, which
Okay.
you already touched
Yeah.
on a little bit, but
Mhm.
this was the first one that I did on premium night, so maybe it set the bar pretty good for me.
Sure.
Also, since it was premium night and nobody had done these haunts before, and there was no one in front of me, I had no idea where I was going, so I got
Oh,
lost
that's fun.
pretty good
That's
in
always fun.
the
Mhm,
first half, even if it
mhm.
wasn't the best part of the haunt. And
Sure.
by the time it really got good, I had found my footing. But
Mhm,
I found the environments interesting. I may not necessarily be a huge fan of the bloated intro, but I understand its
mhm,
purpose. And
mhm,
I kind of like how it builds up to this hype moment with all of the screens. And then you start
mhm.
entering the realm of each character.
Sure.
Amanda, my wife, grew up watching wrestling. I
Okay.
did not. I knew absolutely nothing about this going into the event. So I just was. I just looked at it as I looked at it as another original,
Sure.
which I enjoyed. But
Mhm,
when Amanda came with me later on in the event, seeing how much it meant to her and seeing her get excited and be like make the connection with those characters, that was a kind of cool moment for me.
sure. Mhm. Okay, that sounds awesome. Mhm.
Plus, I love that Mad Hatter scene too, or
Yeah.
is it
Oh,
Rambling
yeah, yeah.
Rabbit? Oh,
Right, right,
so
yeah.
good.
Those scenes were also cool. I really enjoyed all those scenes. It's just the rest that just got a little much for me.
Yeah,
Mhm,
understandable.
mhm. Cool. Number 2 for me, Terrifier. Yeah, a lot of what you said. I thought that this was just a lot of fun. I thought that maybe they gave the arts the most ability to kind of ad lib and go off script.
Mhm.
Um, I really enjoyed that. We had some really good interactions with kind of interacting with these arts, which I really liked. Um,
Every time.
yeah,
So
yeah, it was
fun.
great. Um,
Never a miss.
no, never, never. They did a absolutely fantastic job. Um, if I had to ding it on anything, maybe it leaned maybe a little too silly. Like, I mean, Art's such an interesting character in the movies because he is this mix of both sadistic and like funny.
Mhm.
And they nailed the funny part. Um, but I never felt a ton of menace, I guess. And maybe I don't know exactly how you would do it, but I wish there was maybe just a touch more menace.
No, I would agree with that
Mhm.
sentiment. I mean, they talk about it being the goriest haunt ever, maybe. Certainly the goriest one I've seen in a while, but was the gore necessarily scary, or was
Right,
it just gore?
right.
And I'm leaning a little bit more towards the latter because, I kind of forget how gory it was because there was never really a scene where I was like, ugh.
Yeah, this is too
Ugh.
much. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. That's fair. Mhm.
All right.
Number
My
2,
number two, Grave of Flesh.
Grave of Flesh.
Which means we've talked about all but one haunt, but I do have to talk, or I do want to talk about
Yeah,
Grave of Flesh a little bit because I feel like it's gotten some unwanted hate
absolutely.
throughout the year.
Mhm.
And as Josh said, we primarily went the first 2 weekends of HHN, and then I was lucky enough to be around Florida later on in October, so I was able to swing by for an extra night. Um, but between those trips, a lot of people in my Discord or people who I'd been talking to about HHN had been talking about how much the actors have improved in
Mhm.
Fallout and how,
Mhm.
Fallout was going to be the
Mhm.
house to beat this year because the
Mhm.
actors had found their
Mhm.
groove
Mhm.
and they were just knocking it out of the park every night and the scares were phenomenal.
Mhm.
And as I went back this second trip and I went through Grave of Flesh, a house that I very much enjoyed the opening weekends, I probably
Mhm.
had it 4 or 5, give or
Okay.
take. It was middle
Mhm.
of the pack for me,
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
opening weekends.
That's good.
I kind of had to confront my own bias potentially, where I was
Mhm.
like, these actors are great. And do I only like Grave of Flesh because the actors are hitting their marks and not because everything around it is super good?
Mhm.
Or is everything around it just what I want and the actors are an added bonus?
Right.
And I think the actual review lies maybe a little bit in the middle of those two statements.
Sure.
I think I may be a little more, I may be giving the actors a little more credit than the scenic, which is not normally how I rank my houses.
Although the scene with the open grave above you is one of my favorite HHN scenes
Yep.
ever, to be honest with
Yep,
you.
and that's another
Mhm.
thing I was going to say is, going into Fallout, even though the actors were great, there was never a moment in Fallout where I felt like I was in Fallout or I felt like I was in
Right.
anything other than a haunted house,
Right. Right.
or some type of environment.
Sure.
But that opening scene of
Oh,
Grave of Flesh,
so good.
with the the funeral march, the dour soundtrack,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
uh, faint growls and the water dripping down, like
Mhm.
everything about that is just that's if you can compare the immersion to Five Nights at Freddy's, that's probably the best
Yeah.
original moment of the year for me. And as you said, it's got to be one of my favorite scenes up there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just think it did some cool stuff. And I'm always going to give points to the underdog
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
does something different that may or may not work for everyone versus the same thing we've seen a bunch of times just executed at the
Right.
best caliber.
Right.
The MC Escher staircase room with
Yeah, so cool.
with the mirrors and the distraction, that's great. We've seen Universal use mirrors a lot in the
Mhm.
past,
Mhm.
but now in Grave of Flesh, a lot of the mirrors weren't just, they weren't your square rectangles. They were they had tapered edges. They were shapes that kind of fit into
Yeah.
the environment. And it wasn't,
Huh?
it was a what's the word? It was an evolution on what we'd
Right.
seen before. I know you're thinking about that scene at the end, the mirror scare with the mirror
Uh-huh.
scare hidden in the blue hole where the actors are
Yeah.
back and forth and they're
Yeah.
The
The best scare of the year, I thought. The only
scare
one
of
that
the year,
really got
hands
me.
down.
Mhm.
Very rarely do I go through
Right.
HHN and,
Mhm.
I'm or even any haunted house, and I'm
Right.
when I enter a room, am I like, "What is going on?" And
Mhm.
that's what I did that first time. I was like, "I see something moving, but, what
Right.
is it?" And then they dude was right there, and I was like,
Right.
"Oh, okay, that's a good scare." And then
Yes.
he was right there again, like 2 seconds later. And I think Grave of Flesh nailed that. It nailed that
Mhm.
pinball effect where you're going from one scare to the next scare to the next scare, and you're just bouncing around, and you never have a moment to quite breathe because you never know what's coming next.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a design flaw for some people because it's so abstract, or maybe that's intentional. If you don't know what's going on, the misdirection and the scares are a little more surprising. But I
Right.
think Grave of Flesh, one of the best times I had this year. I think actually this was the house that I ended up going through most, which shouldn't be too surprising for many people considering how low the wait
Wow.
time was a
Right.
lot. Pretty
Exactly.
easy to marathon. Didn't have to wait that 3 hour wait like for Terrifier and Five Nights most of
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
But
Shout
I
out Grave of Flesh for
yes.
being the only walk-on on Premium Scream Night.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And best indoor queue.
Yes.
Sorry, Wyatt Six, but I love that Grave of Flesh queue.
Yeah, yeah.
Something about knowing the house is right there,
Mhm,
being able to see the
mhm,
people coming out. Oh,
mhm, mhm.
so
A
good.
lot of fun. Mhm. Yeah, I guess I wish that I mean I listened to all the podcasts and all the stories and stuff, and maybe I wish that they had done a little bit more to explain it.
Agree.
But they took a swing. It was a little weird, which is kind of fun. I think a little bit of weird is a good time.
Mhm.
I love this house too. It was just so much fun. Mhm.
And I think the other thing that I enjoyed was that it didn't feel like just a amalgamation of past things that HHN has done,
Sure.
just kind of with a new coat of paint. One that as I was trying to come up with my thoughts for Grave, I was thinking a lot about the Fallen from
Mhm,
2017,
mhm.
where, you know, sounds like a haunt that should be A plus. It's this
Right.
giant medieval gothic concept full of dark and gritty demons, and it's got bungee scares, but in reality it was a lot of rooms that we'd already seen or that we normally see each year at HHN, just kind of put back to back. The scares weren't all that they were built up to be,
Mhm.
and it didn't flow, I guess, is the biggest thing. It didn't flow the way that you would expect something like that, and maybe it was a bit too overstuffed with the types of creatures, whereas Grave of Flesh kind of stripped all of that away and
Mhm.
was streamlined. You only had a handful of different characters throughout.
Mhm.
They were all very distinct and
Right.
didn't kind of blend into each other.
Right.
And
Right.
shout out to those intestine guys. I love that little intestine room. Oh, so
Yeah.
cool.
Mhm. Yeah. Love it.
Which I think that leaves number one. I wonder
Number
what
one
it could
both of
be.
us. Agreed. Okay, that was gonna be El Artista, of course. Mhm.
Me too. Imagine
What are the
that.
odds? Mhm. Cool, we both wanna talk about this one. Billy, what was your favorite scene from this haunted house?
What was my favorite scene? That's a good question. Because I think the easy answer would be to say the courtyard,
Mhm.
as big and beautiful as it is.
Mhm.
But I think I've got to go with the first scene. I think I've got to go with the intro, right when you walk into
Okay.
the
Mhm. Mhm.
mansion,
Mhm.
and or the La Casa Creacion, and you've
You're right.
got Stilt Walker on one side, Sergio on the other. I think there's like more effects in that single scene than some
Yeah.
HHN haunts I've done in
Yeah.
the past have had like throughout the entire haunt.
Yeah. The
It's
floor
really
guy.
it's
Floor
real
ghost.
it's what?
Floor ghost.
Yeah, Floor Ghost, legendary
Floor
truth.
ghost. Uh-huh.
My origins are back. But I am sad to say I don't think Floor Ghost made it through the event. Floor Ghost I did
Mm.
not see when I went back at the
Sad.
end of October.
Mhm.
But
So sad.
really it's hard for me to fault any scene in El Artista. Except for maybe the final few rooms in the catacombs, but the actors were so good on those. But I think pretty much the first three-quarters of the haunt is essentially tied with me. Different strengths for each scene, but I think consistently executed superbly. What about you, Josh?
I think yeah, I think that's a super fair thing to say. I think maybe the end reminded me a little bit of Spirits of the Coven,
Yeah.
not in the best way.
Mhm.
But I thought that the huge majority of it was so much better. My favorite scene, I'm gonna go a little basic, but that's okay. I got to go with the facade. Just
Yeah.
when you walk into the facade room and just seeing the mansion in front of you, you see the sign that says La Casa Creacion. Um, I could have like made a bed right there and just like slept overnight in that room. It was just so beautiful.
They should have
Uh,
done that. I would have paid to do it too.
I would have
I
paid
would have done
to
that.
do
Like,
it. Right, that's the super RIP tour is the overnight
yeah,
sleepover.
there you go. RRIP.
Right, to really really rest in peace. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I mean we got to talk about Gargoyle too. The
Yes.
Gargoyle was absolutely amazing. This was not the Dylan Colath house, is that's right,
No, I
right?
think it was.
It was.
I
Okay.
believe so. I
Okay.
can check
Mhm.
real quick, but I believe this one and Hatchet and Chains were
Yeah.
and Jason were Dylan Colath
Okay.
this
Okay.
year.
I loved the gargoyle especially being in both the kind of the greenhouse garden
Yes.
type room, and you could also see him in the big courtyard too.
Yes.
And I love that this character is in multiple scenes. It really kind of makes it feel alive. You know you see this character come around, and then oh, all of a sudden like he's on the courtyard like looking down at you when you're in the courtyard scene. Um, the details just absolutely stunning. The wisteria, the statue scare in the courtyard. I
Oh,
saw just put so many people on the floor, which is awesome.
so good.
Um, and I loved that they made Sergio such a big part of the event. I know that
Agreed.
you know he's not technically an icon, but I love that he was so entwined with the lore of the event and all of the event as a whole. I Stunning house, just amazing stuff.
I agree. And I'm HHN, at least for me, it's all about the ebb and flow. Of course, you've got those giant moments like the courtyard and the facade
Mhm,
and
mhm.
the greenhouse, but also the quieter moments and the more
Right,
claustrophobic moments. It
right,
doesn't work if it's all just
right,
big open scenes.
right.
And maybe this is a nerdy thing to say, but I think
You're
my
on a
second
podcast about
favorite.
Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, you
You're
touche.
already too
You
late.
got me there. But I think maybe my second favorite scene is just that hallway. Um, After, I guess technically, what would it be like scene three? After you've gone past the staircase and you're just walking through the house before you get to that greenhouse
Mhm,
area,
mhm.
and you've just got the massive paintings on
Mm.
the wall and the
They're so
murals,
creepy.
and there's yeah, it's so creepy, and it's that
Yeah,
moment where you're just kind of like you've seen the big stuff already, but now
right.
you've seen the big in your face scares, but this is the atmospherics that
Mm,
kind of stay with you and get under your skin.
yeah.
I'm so sad I didn't get a picture of it on unmasking because
Mhm.
I want to make those dog creatures or whatever they were my background.
Okay.
I have to figure out if I can find a picture of it, but the giant little black creature thingies that had the whatever they
I'm
were. They're
pretty confident I have a picture. I can look and
they,
send it to you.
they were my favorite. Like I
Mhm,
still think
mhm,
about them to this
mhm.
day. They were my favorite part of the house.
Yeah, those scenes, those quieter scenes raise the tension. I think you can't just go all out for too long, and you need a little bit of time to let the tension raise. And I think that those scenes do just an absolutely beautiful job of that. Um,
So good.
it's amazing. Yeah, yeah. This was I think a top 5 of all time for me, pretty easily.
Yeah.
I think arguably top 3. Um, and yeah, I miss it.
Certainly top 5 for me,
Mhm.
which out of
Means a lot.
what, we're at 135 for me
Means
now
a
this
lot.
year
Mhm,
after
mhm,
this year, so that's
mhm.
that's no easy feat, and,
Right,
the
right.
one thing I love about haunted houses is kinetics, and I think that's
Mhm.
something that's super important. You can't just have one thing that's moving, you can't just have one focal point, otherwise it's very easy to tell where the scares are gonna come from or where the big moment is,
Right.
and if you know where everything's coming from, then everything that's supporting it doesn't necessarily matter as much.
Yeah.
But El Artista did the exact opposite. You never quite knew where the scares were going to come from, where there
Right,
was going to be effects. Every direction
right,
you looked was
right.
something moving. Was that the big thing, or was that just a setup for something else?
Exactly.
You never really knew.
Mhm.
So the people who say that El Artista wasn't scary, I don't know if I fully buy into that for you guys. I could argue that yes, it certainly wasn't the scariest haunt. Maybe
Sure.
not in the top, maybe not even in the top 5 scariest of this year. But to say that it wasn't a scary haunt in general, nah. Especially when I went back in October, those catacombs, oh, they
Mm,
were going all out. And I love how they added some depth to it too. And it wasn't just boo holes. It looked like the boo holes went on a little longer than they actually were, which
right.
just sold that. But yeah,
Mhm.
I could go on about LRT stuff for, we could probably do like an entire
Episodes
podcast
just on
series just about LRT
maybe
stuff.
one day.
But
Maybe
yeah,
one
maybe
day.
one day.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
when it
In
comes,
March when we have nothing to talk about.
yeah, there you go. But when it comes to scenic design, it's pretty
Mhm,
much unmatched.
mhm.
Top 5 for sure for me, hands
Sure.
down.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, great. That is our 1 to 10. We're running a little behind, so let me go quickly through the other couple that I wanted to point out,
Yes.
um, which were Jason. I had Jason at number 4. Um, I thought this was an interesting house because it was really felt like a tale of two halves to me. I walked through on premium night, and I thought the first half was like pretty bad, to be honest with you. I thought that this is probably a function of the venue just as much as the
Mhm.
the IP and the design.
Yes.
Um, the it all just felt kind of the same. They had the Camp Crystal Lake sign, which is a little bit interesting, but other than that, it was just kind of like kind of generic like boards with
Yep.
some like
Would.
camp. Yeah, exactly. Just kind of some wood there, and oh, there's some camo netting. Um, and then oh, there's Jason jumping out. Oh, there's another Jason. There's another Jason. There's another Jason. I didn't think it was particularly interesting, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be really bad. The transition. Uh, Between the outside scene, I know that this layout was a little bit different from Blumhouse and from Chucky, but
Mhm.
I thought the transition was done really well this time. I
Oh,
thought the Pamela
100%.
actress, great.
So
Uh
good.
huh. Uh huh. Um, and then the second half was cool. It could kind of feel a little cheap scares. I can kind of see how you would say that, but I thought it was fun, and it felt like people were saying like, "Oh, this is the Insidious of this year," and it's not quite the same. I thought Insidious did a much better job with like sound design and like
Yes.
just like raise, yeah, like we talked about like the tension and just like had like tension you at like a 10 the entire time. But I thought that the gauntlet was so much fun. It would fill with fog, and you could not see more than 3 feet in front of you. And that had the downside of not being able to see the characters. There were multiple times when I just couldn't see it. I can see it. There's strobes going on, but I couldn't
Yep,
see
but
the
you're
actor
like,
that was a foot away from me. There's too much fog. But
the scares were stupid, and I say that as a compliment, but it
right,
was it was good cheap fun.
right,
It knew exactly what it set out to be, which was just a zillion jump scares,
right.
and that's
Back to
exactly
back,
what we
back, back
got.
to back. Yeah.
I can fault something like Halloween 2022,
Mhm.
haters incoming. I can fault something like that trying to echo everything that the
Mhm.
Halloween series is, but ends up
Mhm.
just being a bunch of Michael Myers popping out
Right.
for no
Mhm.
purpose versus
Yeah.
something like Jason Universe, which said very clearly from the start was like, this is
Jason.
this is Jason's characters, like Jason's character's the house. This is all it is. It's pretty much exactly what the
Right.
description was,
Right.
and
Mhm.
that's what it delivered on. And
Right.
dare I say, I haven't been a huge Friday the 13th fan throughout my life, so I haven't seen the films more than, here or there. I didn't
Mhm.
remember how good the music was. I
Oh, so good.
thought the soundtrack was actually very successful in this haunt.
Mhm.
Maybe the rest of the sound design, not so much, but especially in the big open air courtyard, the score and the sound design
Mhm.
there, that was a real good moment.
Right.
That's a core memory from this year for me.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That soundtrack does that soundtrack is so good. Mhm.
Slaps.
That's what the kids say. Yeah. Mhm. Cool. Okay. One more real quick for me. Fallout. I had this at last. You had this at last. I didn't get to see. Everyone talked about how like good it got in the second half of the year when the ghouls were allowed to actually like
Mhm.
jump out of
Oh yeah.
the supermarket. Um, it was better, I assume.
Yes, it was better. And
Mhm.
again, when I think this goes for both of us, but when we're talking about how it's not being as great, it has nothing to do with the
Of
characters themselves.
course.
The
Of course.
characters are doing everything that they've got, but
Right.
for an
They're the
event like
attractions.
HHN, yeah,
Mhm.
for an event like HHN, they've kind of got their scares telegraphed for them, and that's
Exactly.
kind of what we have to
Mhm.
look at is what were they given? And of course, there's a lot of actors who go above and beyond and can
Of course.
improvise with that, but they can't
Mhm.
always, do more than a
There's only so much you can do.
yeah.
Mhm.
But yes, the ghouls jumping out was a lot better than when they were just pressing up against glass. As much as I wanted that to be effective, it was just a little
It
too
was not.
frosted for it to work that well.
There's a shadow on the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
Mhm.
much. Could have just
Yeah.
done projections at that point.
Right, exactly. Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that I mean, I'm gonna go a little further and say that this was one of the worst haunted houses that I've done at in Orlando. I'm very particular with the way I say it, haunted houses, because I thought this was a fantastic immersive experience. It was a
Mhm.
really good immersive experience. I just didn't think that this version of the IP deserved to be at Halloween Horror Nights. Were there horror elements? Yes, of course there were horror elements, but I thought that a lot of it was kind of stretched to fit this house.
Yeah.
I don't think that a pretty blonde woman jumping out at you and going okie dokie is particularly
Okey-dokey.
scary. So and just a little too many hero scares. I thought that I wish they had done more T60s. I understand, or the T90s or whatever they're called, the big robo armors. I understand that they're probably expensive and difficult, and they spent all their puppet budget on FNAF.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
that the mirror scene didn't really work particularly well.
Yeah,
Um,
it was kind of a
it's
and especially
kinda like
after going through Hatchet and
Funhouse.
Chains, a
Yeah.
haunt that
Mhm,
has, like, a
mhm.
shootout happening pretty much the entire time and is done pretty effectively going
Right,
into, strobe and mirror hallway with gunshot sounds, and you can't really tell anything else that's going on. It
right.
kinda got beaten by the rest of the competition inadvertently.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I think that if you made a little bit of changes, I think that this would work really well as a fan fest night's house, which,
Agreed.
I mean, I
100%.
I I don't know if you viewers follow Universal that much, but basically this is Hollywood's event of a mix of walkthroughs and other like immersive experiences around franchises with fan followings that aren't necessarily horror. They did like Star Trek last year. They did Back to the Future last year, Dungeons and Dragons, a handful of other IPs like that. I think that this would fit absolutely perfectly in FanFest nights. Um, and just wasn't a fan. Just wasn't scary enough for my taste. So
Well, what do you think, Josh? Are we gonna go to FanFest this year so we can, confirm if Fallout should be there or not?
I got my ticket already. How about you?
Good? Yeah. Well, I'll clear my schedule after this episode.
Good, good,
But
cool,
what do you guys? You guys wanna hear about us going to FanFest? I think we've got some things that we could say for
for sure.
sure if you guys will be here.
Yeah, we can talk all day.
All especially me.
That's true. Mhm. Cool. Okay. Let's speed through these scare zones. I want to keep it under an hour.
Yes.
So let's speed through these. Our scare zone rankings. Included with this will be street experiences. So we have a total of six, which is four scare zones and
Mhm.
two street experiences. Number six, we probably have the same. Mine's Club Horror.
Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
same.
It's not a scare zone. It's fun. It's cool. Not a scare zone.
Yep.
Mhm.
People probably already know my thoughts. The only one thing I will say is I think Club Horror, they could just expand the entire back like World Expo
Yeah.
area and include it as kind of like a prelude to Nightmare Fuel or whatever is in
Yeah.
the Fear Factor and
Mhm.
just make that kind of a whole party area.
Mhm.
I think that would work better than just a zone where you
Yeah.
can blink and miss it. The idea was there, execution wasn't bad, but it's not for me, not for us.
Right.
Not what we go to HHN for.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Number six. Um, Mine might be different from yours. Mine is gonna be Origins of Horror.
Ooh, you mean number 5?
Yeah, five. Sorry. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
my number 5 is going to be, the
Okay.
Mel zombies.
Let me give you my like one or
Yeah.
two sentence. Better than previous open entrance scare zones, but still just not enough. Although I certainly enjoyed, especially the characters that the statue characters that had like the rebar coming out of them. They were so
Yes.
cool looking, but
Yes.
still an opening scare zone. Still just not as much as the rest. Mhm,
Understandable.
mhm.
And For my number 5, I've got the Mel's
Mhm,
Diner
mhm,
Zombies.
mhm, mhm.
Um, Good idea. Again, still, I guess, pun intended, finding their footing this year.
Right.
Because it's kind of hard to do something that crazy in the streets when things are, or when the park gets as crowded as it does, especially considering how
Right.
crazy HHN guests can be. But it was something
Yeah.
fun. But was it something that, if I wasn't a content creator, would I have stopped for more than 5 minutes here or there to get some
Mhm,
shots? I
mhm.
probably would have just walked by him and like, huh, that's cool.
That's fair. Yeah. That's number 4 for me, so I'll jump right off of that. I agree with what you said. I think that there wasn't a ton of props. I wish that they had a little bit more props, but I gave it the leg up over Origins. I had some really good interactions with a lot of the characters. I would sit there and eat dinner inside of Mel's, or I sat outside a couple times and watched go some football games with my
Yep.
team, and multiple times the zombies would come up to the windows if I was eating, or they would point with their leg bones at the football game,
Plus,
and just really good interactions that I never got because of how crowded Origins always was.
yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I've got to give it to those zombies too, because they didn't have masks or like
Yeah,
anywhere they could hide. When they were
right.
on, they
They
were
were
on.
on.
They couldn't take a moment to adjust
Mhm,
or hide behind a prop or do
mhm,
something to adjust their prosthetics or something. Like they had to go. And not only that, they
right.
were on roller skates too. So big shout out to them because that's got
Mhm.
to be a physically enduring.
For sure, for sure.
Um, I guess we're on to my number 4, which is Origins of Horror. Um,
Mhm.
it's an entrance zone, very well done entrance zone. I think it's probably the best entrance zone that I've seen in quite a while, considering
Right.
that's normally just kind of the IP gauntlet with
For
a
sure
bunch of
since
actors
COVID.
that you're
Mhm,
gonna see later on in
mhm,
the haunts.
mhm, mhm.
Um, Scenic was very good. I love that kind of it was that mission statement of like, yes, we actually have a cohesive theme this year. We have a cohesive
Mhm,
gothic conservatory theme that you're going to
mhm.
see, and it committed to that even with the IPs. So I applaud it for that.
Yeah.
But again, there's only so much that you can do because it's a Plaza of the Stars or Minion Land, whatever it's called now.
Mhm.
It's just so narrow that it's hard to really do anything more than what they did, even
Right.
if it was done very, very well.
Right. Yep, that's totally fair.
Gotta love those gargoyles characters though.
They're great. They're
They
always
great
great.
interactive or great interactions
Mhm,
with guests, great
mhm.
scares too. Real deal.
Right.
All
And the
right.
crows too. We love crows.
Yes, and the
Mhm.
crows. I forgot. Not just in Hollywood anymore.
Hollywood, backed by popular demand. Mhm. Okay, number 3. I'm gonna go a little probably controversial here, and I'll just talk about it just briefly. Yeah, we're getting close to time. Um, my number 3 is gonna be Cat Lady. Um, to start with, I thought the zone did a better job than maybe any other zone of like telling a story and
Mhm.
telling especially like this linear story that I thought was so cool. You especially as you're walking from the front of the park towards like Simpsons, if you
Mhm.
walk that direction, it's awesome being able to read the storybook boards, which I love the look of, and see these kids slowly starting to transform into cats as you walk along. It was super obvious to see this story progressing as you go forward. Um, that was amazing, just fantastic. The fact that they had this like little like mini gauntlet was so cool
Yes.
too.
Oh, I love
And
that.
then yeah, it was awesome. And
So good.
then the ending show with the actual lady
Mhm.
was also really cool too. Like I really loved it. Why is it at 3, you might ask? Um, it was always so crowded and terrible to walk through. First,
Mhm.
I never liked the location. It's difficult to just sit and watch the characters performing like you can
Mhm.
in Hollywood and in New York.
Right.
Um, Plus, the house at the end made the traffic flow just awful. There'd be so many times you'd like push through people that were standing and waiting for the show, and it was
Mhm.
just a nightmare every time I walked through that zone. Which I wanted to love it, and I love the pumpkins, but it just didn't. Too crowded, too much.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Scare zones are hard to nail at
mhm.
HHN for that reason because
Right.
there's always going to be so much people, and
Mhm.
I think this was a good kind of test at trying to add alternate things. You got
Mhm.
gauntlet that you just
Mhm.
mentioned to kind of
Mhm.
encourage people to maybe go the other direction
Right.
instead of just go through. But
Right.
yeah, it's hard to really do more than just what you can.
Right.
Um, I have a few things I'll mention for Cat Lady later on when I get to that on
Mhm.
mine. But if you have no more comments on that, my number three is going to be Masquerade.
Okay.
Um, I won't go into my whole thoughts on scare zones, and they're my thoughts on Mel Zombies are kind of my thoughts on scare zones. There has to be a really good reason or something that really piques my interest for me to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes in there. Luckily, HHN has gotten a lot better at that
Yeah.
recently throughout the years with their zones, but Masquerade is still essentially just that. It was decorations on the way to going to the back to the it was decorations on the way to getting to the haunts in the back of the park.
Sure.
Very good set or floats, I guess, whatever you would want to call
Yeah.
them. Great actor interactions. I liked the show that would go off every 15
Right.
minutes or so.
Mhm. Mhm.
Beautiful, beautiful costumes, especially in the
Yes.
lighting.
Love the
But
dresses. Mhm.
again, it's hard for me to look at it as something other than just a really good distraction for everything else.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Mhm. Yeah. Okay, number 2 for me, Toxic 20s. So, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, I think that other scare zones as a whole were a lot better this year.
Yes.
Um, I really enjoyed Toxic 20s. Um, I thought that maybe it leaned a little too, like, silly, stereotypical New
Mhm.
Yorker type, which sometimes is fun, but sometimes was a little much for my personal taste. Um
HHN leaning too much into something?
No,
What?
couldn't
I've
be them.
never seen that before.
Right, right. But yeah, I mean, I thought that a lot of the props were a lot of fun. I liked all the different kinds of characters.
Mhm.
I thought that even the victims weren't boring. They usually
Yes.
had some of the talk, the slime, the BuzzCon on them, and I thought that was much better than like last year's victims, which were just kind of people.
Yeah. People
But
in
it was fun.
crowds.
I really enjoyed the scare zone.
I've got some more to say about Toxic 20s. And I think, as we've been talking, I think I'm going to do a little last minute switch up. And I think I'm going to actually put Cat Lady at number two for me.
Okay. Okay.
As the cats got locked out of the room for this recording because they were being little terrors. But as an avid cat person, Cat Lady was at the top of my list for a while. But looking back on it, Josh kind of hit all the points on the head.
Mhm.
But looking back, the first half of it, going from like the actual Central Park zone, was kind of a wash. You
Mhm.
kind of just walked through it to get to the
Right.
stage.
Right.
The actors
Mhm.
there, the transformation, the
So
actors did a
cool.
great job selling the
Mhm.
transformation, and it had the variety of costume was much better, but
Right.
there wasn't that reason to kind of sit and look around as much as there was in other scare zones or as there
Sure.
was at the end of the zone. It was the concrete walls to WWE. You had to get through that to get to the part that you really wanted to see.
Sure.
For lack of a better term.
I like that comparison. Mhm.
And what you got for number one?
Number 1's gonna be Masquerade for me.
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
I love me some Hollywood zones. I think I
Mhm.
can count on one hand the number of years that Hollywood wasn't my number 1, 23 and 24, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That
but I
tracks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to like them, but, I loved the characters. I loved the period, clothes. I loved
Mhm.
the stilt walkers. The stilt walkers make any zone better, in my opinion.
Yes.
I loved, yeah, I really like the costuming. I think the costuming was the best out of any of the zones this year. Um, I and yeah, it was just awesome. I Hollywood's great for just being able to sit and just watch all the benches along the row, and I'm a scare zone lingerer.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
I
become one.
I love to just sit at the end of the night and just watch the people go through the scare zones. So this is perfect for me. Yeah, my
Yeah.
favorite.
I mean, and I will say I've become much more of a scare zone lingerer in the last few years, and I've
Mhm,
grown to appreciate them more. And I think to echo your sentiments, I think Hollywood is probably where I have spent the most time throughout the years
mhm,
watching the scare zones and the
mhm.
actors and interacting with them. And I think that's the same. I think that can be said easily for this year as well.
Yeah,
Even though my number one I have as surprise, surprise, Toxic
Toxic
20s,
20s.
which I wasn't actually expecting. But I talked about it when we were talking about El Artista.
Mhm,
Kinetics are very important for me in haunted
mhm,
houses.
mhm, mhm.
It's no fun if you know where the action is going to come from.
Right,
And the best zones that HHN has done for me make have managed to have the scares come from unsuspecting places, even though you're in the middle of a wide open street. And the vignettes that there were in Toxic 20s were so good. The details on the sets weren't just, there for decoration. They were there because they were there and they made you want to take a closer look. You wanted to look at those newspapers on the newspaper stand because there was stuff to read. And when you
right,
did that, somebody was right there to pop out at you.
right.
Or, oh, what's that? Is that person moving that's tied up by all those flowers? And then somebody would jump right through
Mhm,
the
right.
little greenhouse trestle.
Sure.
I just thought it did a great job, great sight lines, especially with the sign towards the San Francisco area. It
Mm,
just felt like a living in a dynamic zone. It wasn't just walking through New York. It managed to make New York feel like something more than just an area dressed up for Halloween Horror Nights,
right.
which
Mhm,
is probably the highest compliment I could give a New York
mhm,
zone.
mhm.
But good stuff all around.
Yeah. 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 I'm remembering now how much I did like some of the characters, like the photographer guy that would comment
Yep.
on my camera, and the woman with the baby that was all covered in the goo too was fun. They had some really good interactions there.
Yeah.
So yeah. Cool.
I
And that is going to wrap up all the scare zones.
Woo.
Um, let's spend just a brief minute or two talking about um, anything else that you want to talk about for the event as a whole? Is there anything else that really
Yeah.
stood out to you as a whole? Anything else that we didn't talk about? Shows, tribute store, merch, and then your thoughts on the event as a whole, if you want to expand any further on the things that you said at the beginning.
Yeah, I'll do some real quick ancillary reviews. I don't go to HHN necessarily for shows. Honestly, I'm not a theme park entertainment person in general. Maybe I'm just a cynic, but a lot of the shows, even at the big theme parks, just have never done anything for me. Maybe
Mm,
it's hard for me to find that suspension of disbelief. Um, but I didn't see Nightmare Fuel this year. I'm glad that people get a lot of things out of it and that a lot of people enjoy it.
mhm,
For me, it gets them out of the line so that way I can go through the haunts and
right.
spend more time in the zones. And,
Mhm,
HHN isn't designed just to appeal to me specifically. So I think it's great that there's something there that isn't something that I'm beaming about.
mhm.
But as far what was the projection show called? It wasn't Ghoulish,
It
was
was
it?
Hauntophonic, a ghoulish
That's
journey.
what it was. Hauntоphonic, I very much enjoyed. The same way I talk about scare zones kind of being just, themed passageways to get to the next experience. Hauntоphonic was like a themed rest zone. It was something cool to watch. It very much imbued the spirit of Halloween. It felt like a good classic uh it had that good classic Halloween spirit, like wicked growth vibes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was something fun to watch. It was something fun to pass by every night, and it's something that made the entire park feel alive with the classic Halloween spirit, as opposed to something maybe a little more grittier and
Mhm,
or realistic.
mhm.
So honestly, I didn't the previous Lagoon shows didn't do much for me. Love Hauntоphonic, would go there every night just to chill
Relax.
out and
Mhm.
cool down for a little bit.
Right.
There's not too much to say about the tribute store. I didn't hate it. It's kind of hard to judge it based off of the handicaps that the team was given with
Sure.
not with the location that they had. But it felt like a cohesive store. I mean, it was essentially, just a room tacked onto a store that already existed, but it still felt like a cohesive experience. And it felt like something that kind of tied into HHN as a whole, and it didn't necessarily feel like that, oh hey, here's this extra themed experience at the back of the park,
Mhm.
like some of them have felt, or here's
Sure.
the IP plug that we've got to do to sell the merchandise for
Sure.
these
Mhm.
guys.
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
but overall out of 15 years, I think this is probably in my top 5 or maybe number 5. I've got to actually sit down
Mhm.
and
Tribute store
think
ranking.
about it a little more, but I think it's
Mhm.
it's it's in the upper half for sure. And I think that's because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of the complaints I've had about HHN in the past, I saw rectified this year.
Mhm.
We've had entire haunts where there's absolutely no puppets or effects and it's just characters popping out. And now we have El Artista that has more effects than a single house just in its first room.
Right.
I think the blocking was better for a lot of the scares throughout the haunts, with a lot of these characters having the ability to get you two places instead of just one. With Grave of Flesh, we talked about the mirrors, how they aren't just rectangular and
Mhm,
obvious everywhere now. Um,
mhm,
I just see the things that I love about HHN being done just a little bit differently. In some
mhm,
cases, a little bit better. In some cases, might still need some fine tuning.
mhm,
But I didn't see HHN 34 as an event that was just doing the same thing that I've seen HHN do before. They
mhm,
were trying new things, they were branching out, and the IPs weren't just, direct retellings of the movies with that boring happy ending scene
mhm.
at the end that nobody really wants to actually see.
Sure.
Um, they put you in the world and let you run free instead of
Mhm.
telling you what you're going to see in that world.
Sure.
Um, so I think that's what sums up how I feel about HHN
Mhm,
34. It's definitely a year I would want to go back to, but I think I think there were some shortcomings that'll keep it from being
mhm,
remembered as the best ever, even
mhm,
if there are some things that it's going to go down in history
mhm,
for.
mhm, mhm.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I thought that, like last year was hurt by how good 32 was, I think this year was helped by how bad 33 was. I think that
Yeah.
um, people dislike last year so much that anything would be better than nothing. Um, and I thought that this year was good. It was definitely a step in the right direction. I love the cohesive theme that we talked about. Um, I loved the roaming arts. The roaming arts were so much fun. I would love to see that idea come back again and
Oh,
again.
yes.
Mhm.
More street
Yes,
experiences like
yes,
that. More
yes.
unique
Mhm,
street
mhm,
experiences.
yeah. But I thought that the originals, when you got outside of like the top end, I thought that they got pretty weak pretty quickly. Or mediocre pretty quickly, I should say.
Mhm.
I thought that Artista was like an all timer, but then the rest, I didn't think there were any like super like all timers in the ranking, maybe as much
Yeah.
as some of the years that I love the most. Um, which is fine. It's not a bad event. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to the merch team. Please make more of these. I love this
Yes.
thing. I had to get a bunch of them. So please make more cool stationary stuff like that. But that's a personal plug.
Yes.
Um,
No, I agree with that. I think the
yeah.
merch expanding in the recent years and
Mhm.
becoming more than just, an event shirt
IP.
and
Uh-huh.
a few other
Uh-huh.
things. I think that's a step in the
Mhm.
right direction.
Mhm.
I'll
Mhm.
take all the types of merch you can come up with.
Yes. And finally, bring back the cards next year. Yes, bring back the cards. They're
Yes.
great. They were so much fun. Yeah, okay. I think
Woo.
we were a little over, but that's okay. I made a big deal about how I wanted to keep it to an hour, but we went a little over. That's okay. We're excited. Sue us.
Classic six
Um,
billion video.
it's true. That's okay. Um, so as far as plugs, I don't really have a whole lot I want to plug.
Mhm.
Check out hhngraveyard.com. It has all of the old websites on it. I have some more blog posts that I need to write up about some of the interesting things I found in some of the code. I'll do that eventually. And then check out hhnh2h.com where you can rank all of the haunts from all over the world.
It's so
Um,
much fun. I do it all the
yes,
time.
yes, I love that. I got to write down all my reviews too. You can also post
Oh yeah.
reviews and check out what people say.
Yes, I
So,
got some up there too.
mhm. Yes. Okay, Billy, what are you making? What do you want to plug? What's
Oh
going on in the six
Lord.
billion verse?
Um, check out my YouTube channel,
Mhm,
SixBillium. I
mhm,
promise that there's gonna be a lot of content coming throughout this year.
mhm.
Real life kind of got in the way of a lot of my creative endeavors, as it does.
Tough being an adult,
Which
man.
temporary, yeah,
Mhm.
being an adult sucks sometimes, but these temporary roadblocks will allow me to have better foundation for HHN moving forward next year. And going on these trips certainly isn't cheap.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, YouTube isn't at the point where it pays the bills yet.
Hopefully,
Keyword is
not too
yet.
long.
So I need my big boy job to allow me to get that frequent fear and to
Yep.
allow me to be able to visit the West Coast and not
Mhm.
Scary Farm, the best Halloween event in the country. But check out my YouTube channel, 6Billium. I'm in the middle of my HHN countdown right now, where I'm
Best
ranking
series
all
ever.
125
Mhm.
haunts that I've
Mhm.
done. Um, After I finish this series, it does not include this year's haunts because I started it way back in June. Promise we'll get it done. Except
Mhm.
real life got in the way.
Happens.
But coming next year, we'll get the director's cut where I will include all of this year's haunts in that. I'm going to be ranking all of the years that I've been to for HHN. And I'm really curious, or I'm really excited for that video to kind of compare and contrast and look at how the event has evolved since I started going. I'm
Mhm.
going to branch out to more content regarding the West Coast this year, HHN Hollywood,
The goat
Not
event.
Scary
Mhm.
Farm, local events, and hopefully this upcoming Halloween season for 2026, I'll be able to bring some coverage to some more local haunts in the Orlando, Florida area.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I just haven't been able to afford a rental car when I've been going.
Mhm.
And with my work schedule, really the only time I can get off to visit Florida is the first 2 weeks of September, which is when only HHN is
Right.
open. So, as much as I want to make it to all those local haunts, it just hasn't been in the cards for financial and work reasons.
Right.
But maybe this year's the year
Mhm.
or next year's the
Mhm.
year, one of those. But
So
thank you for coming along on the journey, everyone. There's gonna be
yes.
lots of exciting things coming up.
Tell him to finish the countdown so that I can give him some special
Yes.
recordings I made for trivia, his next trivia.
Yes. Please tell me to finish the countdown so I can get it done. The ideas are there's like 800 ideas for things to get done. The
Mhm.
amount of time is 0.
Right.
And I
Mhm.
like talking, as you guys can tell.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do a little less talking and a little more doing outside of the podcast.
That's okay. Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Billy, for spending the time with me and chit-chatting about Horror Nights. Yeah, I think next we'll talk about Hollywood probably, and then,
Black
um,
Walls, let's
Black
go!
Walls, the best event, John Murdy, and
John
then,
Murdy's gonna put a hit out for me after this next episode, but
it's
I
okay,
guess that's okay.
I'll defend his honor. Um, and then we'll talk about Vegas at some point.
Yes.
And then yeah, and then hopefully at that point, we'll talk about some Asia events, and then we'll get into playing some games on stream, and we'll be right in
Yes.
the swing of speculation and stuff for next year.
God, we're already in speculation, aren't we?
Love it. It's
Let's
great.
go.
Cool.
What are we aiming at? Weekly, monthly,
I think bi-weekly. What do you think?
bi-weekly?
hmm
I'm
hmm
I like it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's wrap it up. So thank you for watching the HHN Graveyard podcast with I'm Josh and my good buddy SixBillium. We will see
Thank you,
you
everyone.
all later on.
Yeah.
Bye.